What's going on, guys? My name is Brad, aka iPod Memorizer 11, and we're going to be talking about Modern Warfare 2 Remastered today. Now, there's been a lot of hype around this game lately just because there's been a lot of rumors and speculations on when this game is coming out, and if it is it coming out this year? And there's been some rumors that, oh yeah, it's going to be coming out alongside Black Ops 4, or maybe even a few months, as a couple sources have said recently. Now, personally, I don't think it's going to be coming out within a few months just because that's unprecedented for how Call of Duty typically works, which is around the fall time. So, if anything, if it were to be confirmed to be coming out this year, it would be alongside Black Ops 4. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about why I'm not excited for the game. And before I get into this commentary, I just wanted to say that I'm not openly bashing on the game. I'm just trying to be realistic for how this game might be turning out if it were to be coming out this year. So, I also wanted to say that MW2 holds a pretty special place in my heart, and I think for a lot of people they could say the same thing, even if they may hate on the game now, just because of how it ended up turning out. But for this game, I honestly had a lot of fun with it at the time when I was playing it, which was back in its prime, maybe even a year later during 2011. So it was the first game that I was playing nonstop, and it was also how I got into the YouTube scene for Call of Duty. It was when a lot of these OG COD YouTubers and even Machinima, when it was in its prime, were getting hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of views, just because people just wanted to see MW2 gameplay. And we haven't really seen that since maybe BO2, Black Ops 3 even, and I don't really expect that same experience to be coming up, unfortunately, but either way, I hold this game pretty highly, just for all the memories that I had playing this game, and I personally think it's a top 3 COD just because of how fun it was for me. But the main thing I want to focus on for this commentary is that the gameplay experience is not going to be what we think it will be from the original Modern Warfare 2. And I'm going to be drawing a lot from Modern Warfare Remastered just because that's the only other game that's been remastered, and it's basically been out for a year and a half now, so we could kind of see how the game played out over the course of its so-called lifetime. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the heavy nostalgia going into it, and I don't really blame people for having have high nostalgia for the game just because of the reasons I mentioned, where it was the start of an era for a lot of people. A lot of people were getting into Call of Duty at the time, myself included, and it was also kicking off the YouTube scene and kind of shaping what we know is the YouTube Call of Duty scene today. And I personally don't think that nostalgia should be the sole factor in whether or not this game will be good, because as we saw with MWR, COD 4 was a pretty highly regarded game for a lot of people. I personally wasn't too excited for it just because I didn't play COD 4 in its prime. But either way, MWR was supposed to recapture that nostalgia for the game that a lot of people started with back then, but I don't really think it did that. And I'm kind of worried for MW2 Remastered being the same thing. And I don't think nostalgia could carry a game and just make it good on its own. And there were a lot of problems that people had with MWR compared to COD 4, and there's a variety of reasons that I don't really want to get into in this commentary because I think they're rather well known for now just because the game's been out for a long time. But for me personally, the core game, it's fun, but also it's very unbalanced, and I don't really think this point can be argued pretty much because everyone knows that MW2 is pretty unbalanced because Infinity Ward wasn't really patching them, and it was a different time where the developers weren't really paying as much attention as they are now with balancing out the game. So we're left with a game that had a lot of problems with it, whether it be the one-man army noob tubes or the commando or the really easy sniping or the hackers, etc., etc. So there's a lot of problems with that game, and I don't really expect MW2 Remastered to be capturing, or I don't expect them to be balancing the Call of Duty as we know it. So on one hand, we're going to be left with a game that's broken at its core, and a lot of people are going to be turned off to that just because it's a different time now where developers are actually trying to balance out their game, and I think that's a reason for why a lot of people were turned off to World War II in the beginning, just because the balancing was off. And I know there were other reasons in there, but that's also one of the reasons that turned me off to the game as well. But MW2 Remastered, you got a very unbalanced game on one hand, where nothing is touched because the developers want to stick with the MW2 experience, and they kind of did the same thing with MWR, where they didn't really touch the really OP M16 or the frag damage, and I expect the same thing to be happening for MW2, where OMA noob tubes aren't going to be touched. And then you have, on the other hand, where the developers are going to be patching stuff, but also that's going to be taking away from the original game experience that we had with the original MW2. So let's just say they take away the one-man army noob tubes and they don't touch anything else. I think a lot of people would get up in arms about that because, again, there's a lot of stuff that's broken with the game. So if they were to patch one thing, I think that it would be a pretty slippery slope, and a lot of people would be really angry at the developers if they weren't going to be patching anything else, just because if they're going to change one thing, why not just change the rest and make it a fun game for everyone? So if they were to do that, then the game itself would be a pretty different experience because it's not really the same as back then, even if it's objectively better because one-man army noob tubes are gone or commandos patch, but it's also not appealing to the purest standpoint of how this game should be. And also, I wanted to bring up the fact that supply drops are most likely going to be introduced if this game were to actually be coming out, just because MWR had supply drops as well. Now, I don't really have a problem with supply drops if they were in one of the newer games, but also I kind of have a problem with it if they were to remaster an old game, just because, again, it's kind of taking away from the original game experience where they have all the different camos and all that supply drop filler stuff, but also mainly the new weapons. And in all of the games that we've had supply drops in, we've had new weapons introduced in each and every one of them, which I have a problem with because, again, that's changing up the original Call of Duty experience, as you can say. But for MWR, they introduced a lot of weapons, obviously, and that kind of changed the game up drastically because, again, they're not weapons that were in the game originally. So that's going to change up the meta or even change up how the game is played. And again, MW2 is kind of unbalanced at its core. So what are we going to do there? Are the devs just going to be focusing on the new stuff they put in, or are they going to turn a blind eye to the core stuff that was in the original game, or are they just going to throw it in without any regards to balancing the game at all? And it's these questions that make me skeptical of how MW2 Remastered is going to turn out. And I hate to be so negative with it, but I'm a little cautious about remastering something that's really unbalanced at its core. MWR had these same problems where the game was good for its era, and also it has a lot of nostalgia for many people, and I don't blame them for that. I'm not trying to hate on the game, but also I'm skeptical that the game will capture that original experience, which is the main problem for me, and which is why I don't really want to see them remastering these old Call of Duties. I just want to see them be made backwards compatible for everyone, where the original experience is still there and you can still play it on current gen consoles. So that's basically going to be it for today. If you want to talk about this, just leave a comment down below. I read them all, and we can talk politely on this. Don't hit on me too much for this commentary. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Just leave a comment if you want to express your points on this. So I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.